Yo, what is up everybody? John from Tau Tactics here bringing you another video. Today we're going to be doing our second installment of the Mont'ka matchup series where we go through specific matchups, the key units on each side, the key strats and plays that they have access to, and how we win. Tomorrow I do have a very exciting video that'll be going up within the next couple of days of this coming out. It'll be an interview with the current #1 Drukhari player in the world. He's going to give his thoughts on my interpretation of the matchup and my thought process of how Tau can win it, why Drukhari has risen so much in the meta lately, and he recently won a GT last week, so I want to hear about his list and how that GT went for him. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Alrighty, so key Drukhari units in the matchup. So first and foremost is going to be Scourge. So the reason Scourge are so good is they move 14 inches and they fire in Phase 6. So if you don't have something like SMS, they're going to be pretty hard to interact with because they can just hop out, shoot something, hop back into a ruin. The other thing to watch out for is one of the weapons that they could take in the unit, so they can take 4 of these, is Haywires. So Haywires are really good into things like Riptides because they ignore invulns, because they have the anti-vehicle 4-up and devastating wounds abilities on the weapon. So any 4-up to wound is going to be 3 mortals to whatever they're shooting at. So they can really spike, and they're a scary unit. Part of the reason why I run SMS on a lot of my hulls and Riptides is specifically for the Drukhari and Eldar matchup because it's just so good into them. Just being able to take out even 2 of these guys, just 1 Haywire total, 1 Dark Lance is massive. One thing to note also is the ranges on these. I believe the Haywire is 24, so you can pre-measure where they can end up. So I would do that when you're deploying, is pre-measure if he's placed Scourge on the table, what angles they can get to, and just make sure you're out of those for at least turn 1. The next unit to be careful of, and the reason you're going to want to deploy Pathfinders first, if you go first on attacker-defender rule, is the Beastmaster pack. So the Beastmaster pack shores up a couple weaknesses for Drukhari, so they give them an element of pressure, turn 1, because the Beast pack, they scout 9 and they move 12. So they move 21 inches if they're going first and you're not blocking their scout, and then they'll charge. So I've seen a lot of people do this. It's just another variation of jail, right? Wolf jail, Beast pack jail. They're also really annoying to kill because they have different wounds in the unit. They have a 6 of invul, which can make things awkward. Basically, our best unit into them is probably Breachers, just like mass 1 damage, and they have decent melee. So it really, again, it allows them to score primary, which is really critical. I would just focus these guys down as quickly as possible. And again, if you drop first, string your Pathfinders across the entire battlefield, right? They might be able to scout on the fringes, but that's okay. We just don't want them scouting right through the middle into us. The next unit I want to talk about was the Venoms. So this detachment, the Skysplinter Assault, it is built around their transports. Most of their strats key off the transports. And a way that we can lose this matchup is if you allow the Drukhari player to use the special rules that they have around transports. A lot of them, mainly, for the Venom, for example, if you at the end of the fight phase, if a unit is wholly within 6 of the Venom, they can hop back in the transport. So what that effectively means is they can fight in the fight phase, they can spend a CP for Wraith-like retreat. So whether or not they've killed the unit, they can do this, the unit that they're fighting, because it states that you can be in engagement range and make a fallback move. Basically, you can make a normal move up to 6 inches and get within 6 of the Venom and just hop back in. So you can do damage, hop back into a Venom behind a ruin, be non-interactable, and not trade at all. So as a top player, you want to be taking out the transports as quickly as possible. Incubi and Archon, this is a really scary unit as well. They don't seem like they would, but a full unit of 10 of these guys on average, 80% of the time, they'll take out a Riptide. The reason being is you could stack a bunch of buffs on them. So you get Lance in the detachment if you disembark from a transport, and Charge. If you use a Pain token, you get full hit rerolls and extra AP, so they go from AP1 to AP2. And then the Archon gives them reroll wounds. So there will be wounding on 5s with AP2 2 damage attacks, and rerolling the wound roll. So really they're going to get like between half and 2/3 of the wounds through, and they do a lot of damage. So you got to be really careful about them, especially there's a strat that you can make a normal move with the transport, hop them out, and then still move and charge, and that can be particularly gross. So again, for pre-measuring purposes, really important to stay aware of those things. So Tau's key units. So first and foremost, number one is going to be the Hammerhead, the Ion Hammerhead specifically. The reason being is their transports. The Raider is T8, the Venom is T6, so you'll get this nice volume of Strength 8 shots, AP2 for 3 damage, which is really efficient into a Raider. Now they can pop a 4-up invuln, which might make things awkward, but again, wounding on 4s and having lethal hits will mean that a lot of your wounds are going to get through. Same thing, it comes with the 6 SMS shots, which are really nice into the matchup because they're twin links. So like anything you're hitting is probably going to wound. And putting that sort of pressure on Drukhari without having to place units out in the open, like turn 1, if you don't want to show anything, being able to throw 30 SMS shots into Drukhari and force them to start playing the game, or else they're going to start losing real units, is very strong. Which goes into the next unit, which again, I think Riptides are just a linchpin of the army because having something tanky like that is just so powerful for Tau. Is similar to the Hammerhead. It's got a 4 damage weapon that's Strength 8, so just really good into the transports. It has the SMS shots, which again are just over the course of the game are going to do real damage and take out units from the Drukhari, which is really great. And they force a real commitment out from them. So if you can find a spot on the board where Incubi can't charge them, Haywire Scourge can't get to them, they're gonna, Drukhari's gonna have a hard time dealing with them. They have a couple other units that they can throw into them. Another one to be careful of is Talos with twin liquefier guns, I believe it's called, which is another instance of mortal wounds and anti-vehicle 4-up, as well as Dark Lances will be scattered all over the place. But it gets really awkward trying to kill Riptides with Dark Lances just because 4-up invulns are 4-up invulns. So again, just a very strong unit for the matchup. Next is going to be Breachers. Now, I like Breachers here because I think that you can hold them for a while in the matchup, and they're very strong as a late game piece for Mont'ka. The reason being is because they have Assault natively on their guns. You can still auto 6 advance them out of a transport, or advance the transport up and dump them out. If you do use them earlier on in the game, I would suggest that to maximize their value, do your best to get more than just killing another unit out for value. So obviously if you can kill like an Incubi unit, that'll be clearly worth it, but most of the time you're going to want to be using them to both take a resource off the board and score some sort of secondary or move block some portion of the board, would be my suggestion and how I've been able to find and get a lot of value out of the unit. Next is a little bit of an unorthodox pick, which is the Star Scythes. Right now in my Mont'ka list, I am running 3 Flamers. I don't know if it's great yet, but I do know that it is really good into armies that are T3, GSC, AdMech, Drukhari, Eldar, very strong into all those. The reason being is if your opponent sets up a unit to charge something, right? Let's say an Incubi, a 5-man Incubi with an Archon is setting up to charge a Breacher unit. You can just rapid ingress these guys down and say to your opponent, all right, would you like to charge me? And if they do, they're going to get hit with 66 Flamer shots that are AP1, and it'll be wounding on 3s. So very strong into the matchup. They can also hop, rapid ingress somewhere else and move 16 and still shoot. This turns 1 through 3, which is really great. I just think overall they're really good into the matchup. One unit that I didn't put on here is Pathfinders. They're auto-include and super great in basically every matchup. Again, if you go first, for the drops, you're just going to want to drop them across the line. You can advance them into their deployment zone and take out a resource, right? If they don't hide their scourges well enough, you could take an aggressive line, just advance them up, see if you can't take 2 or 3 of them out, charge a transport, tie them up for a little bit, just take out their speed as much as possible. So another really good unit in the Tau Drukhari matchup. One thing that you will notice about the key Drukhari strats is, again, they all key around the transports. The transports are critical to the success of the detachment and give them the opportunity to a window to beating us, which is taking resources away from us without having to interact and trade resources themselves. So one example of this is the falling back into a transport after fighting. They don't have to kill the unit that they fight. They can then just make a fallback or normal move as long as they end within 3 of a Raider or a Tantalus or within 6 of a Venom. Then they can hop back into the transport, which can be really gross. Next is going to be 4-ups on vehicles. Now, most likely, this is going to be just played every turn on a different vehicle. My suggestion would be to put 2 big damage dealers into him. Don't count on just one Riptide killing a Venom or Raider. Don't count on just one Hammerhead. You want to have 2 pointed at it just in case he does pull the 4-up. It'll give you a way better chance of actually destroying the vehicle. Next, another potential gotcha is a reactive move. So if you move within 9 of a transport, they can make a reactive move of 6. So just make sure when you are ending those moves within 9, if you have to, that's the first move that you make. Reason being is then you can adjust your damage dealers to where they end up actually moving, as opposed to if it was the last move and you had moved, set up a bunch of armies to orchestrate, hey, I want to hit this one target, then you move Pathfinders within 9 and it moves 6 inches away, can be pretty backbreaking. Then all your units are in the open, you're not going to get a kill because it's behind a wall now. Charging after a transport moves, so this just extends the threat range of things like Incubi. So you can move a Raider 14 inches, disembark the Incubi 3, and then charge 12. They could spend a pain token to reroll that charge, which makes it a lot more reliable. So again, the threat range is going to be 29 total with the transport move. So again, you just want to be making sure that you're pre-measuring that stuff before you decide to put units within that threat range. Enhancements, so they do have an enhancement. If a unit disembarks from a transport, they can't overwatch. So that's something to think about. If you're running Star Scythes, you don't want to rapid ingress them in to overwatch something that you can't overwatch. So most likely one unit of Incubi with an Archon will be the ones who have that enhancement, so just be careful of that. One other thing to note about Archons is they do have that 2-up invul until they fail their first save. So if you get something like Assassination, you have to chew through an Incubi unit and the Archon, just be careful that there's a really good chance he could just spike 7, 8, 9, 10 2-ups in a row and making that guy a little bit harder to kill, and then you kind of have the Drukhari player will then have a nice little skirmish piece or secondary score left afterwards. So just something to be careful of and to note there. Alrighty, so our key strats in place for this matchup is going to be first and foremost -1 damage and shooting. So I don't necessarily think that you have to go into every turn with 2 CP in the bank for this strat, but it is really nice into things like Haywires. It makes it really awkward for them to actually take out stuff like Riptides, like skews the math. They go from 3 damage to 2 damage in shooting. So again, there's at least one other instance of mass 2 damage shooting. I think there's 2 instances, so it's a Void Raven Bomber and the Tantalus. So if they're playing either of those 2 units, or maybe both of them, that's something that I would bank on, is having that -1 damage, so when he does bring it down and tries to kill a Riptide or a Hammerhead, it's much more difficult. The next is Auto Advance 6. So Drukhari is just as speedy as Tau is, so having the ability to find little angles on Drukhari vehicles is really big, and the Auto Advance 6 strat is going to be really helpful for that. Same thing with using stuff like Flamer Suits out of reserves, being able to move them 16 after rapid ingressing, guaranteeing a kill on something like Scourge or Mandrakes, and score secondary at the same time is really great. Auto Advancing Breacher 6 at the end of the game, if you're able to hold on to him long enough out of a transport, is also really strong. Because they can still do a lot of reliable damage, so guaranteeing that they're able to get to a certain place on the board is very powerful. Our key tech is going to be Smart Missile Systems, talked about it already, but can't sing its praises enough. Doesn't seem like it's going to be that great, because a lot of the times it'll be hitting on 5s, but with the Hammerheads and the Riptides, it'll be twin linked, so basically any hit that you get is going to go through it for a wound. Any amount of Mandrakes or Scourge that they lose is massive. So something to consider for your list is running mass SMS, because I found that for this matchup, plenty of matchups, there are less transports on the board, I would say, now than there have been, because indirect has gotten nerfed. Our indirect stayed the same. It's always been hitting on 4s and 5s anyways, so it is a little bit of an advantage, I think, and if you haven't tried out the SMS, I would highly suggest it, as long as you have like a decent volume. So for my list, I have 2 Hammerheads, 2 Devilfish, and 3 Riptides, so it gives me a total of 21 indirect shots that are twin linked and 12 more that aren't twin linked, which again isn't going to change matchups into like Marines, for example, very much, but it is very nice to be able to sit behind a ruin and just say, hey, all right, I'm going to start blanking down your scoring units, and over 2 turns, I'll kill a unit of scouts, I'll kill a unit of intercessors, I'll kill a unit of Scourge. So if you don't move up, you're going to start losing damage dealers some of your damage dealers and precious unit scoring piece or precious secondary scoring pieces, while I'll have all my resources intact. Next, flamer suits. Already explained them in a little bit of detail. I just think they're really great into this matchup because the strength 4 into T3, obviously just awesome. If you can double activate them, right, bring them down somewhere annoying, flame a unit, and then sit there. If another unit moves, you get to flame a second one. Really, really strong. Lastly, Pathfinders, just put them on the line, man. If you go first, put them on the line, baby. They're gonna be, it's gonna be really helpful for turning off the enemy scouts, not allowing mandrakes to be in the middle of the table, infiltrating, and yeah, if you get to their backlines, you could definitely take out a unit without too much trouble. How do we win the matchup? So, my thoughts, again, just to hammer some of these home, are eliminating transports. So take them out as quickly as you can. All their strats revolve around them, so make sure that you're taking, if you have the opportunity to take one out, I would go for it. Next is playing around the free incubi kills. Again, you don't want to be giving away a resource for free. That's one way that they can get a resource advantage on us, which starts making things awkward as far as getting back into the game is concerned. SMS, again, really strong tech piece. Now, one play that Drukhari players can make that I think is probably the right play if you have a bunch of SMS is putting Scourges off the board, starting them in deep strike so they could hop down, shoot you, and then move behind a wall that way. So I would just be careful if they start the Scourges off the board. You're just going to have to pay attention to screening a little bit better. But as far as priority is concerned of where you want to be shooting the SMS is Scourge and then Mandrakes, which are their scoring pieces. Last but not least, I think Drukhari is one of the few armies in the game that I believe is probably a little bit better than Tau at secondary scoring. So making sure that, as far as like the VP game is concerned, you want to have the primary advantage. Now, thankfully, we have an inherent advantage because we're a little bit tougher than them. They have to commit more to killing us. Putting stuff like Breachers and that are inside a Devilfish on an objective can be awkward to deal with behind a ruin. Now, they could try to just deny us a couple points, but then again, they're giving us resources, which is great. And we have stuff like Riptides that we could throw on points. After you shoot the Seekers on a Hammerhead, you could throw it in the middle and say, hey, here, deal with this, have fun. So, again, I think you kind of want to be a little bit more aggressive if you're going first, but all things considered, you want to make sure that you have the primary advantage because that is going to be the key to winning the game, in my opinion. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I really appreciate it. This upcoming weekend, I will be doing an interview with the #1 Drukhari player in the world. We'll talk through this matchup. I'll get his perspective, which I think will be really interesting on where he thinks Drukhari can beat Tau and how Tau beats Drukhari, as well as how Drukhari has risen in the meta, why they're so good in this particular meta, and his latest GT win and list. So please subscribe. Stay tuned for this, for the interview, as well as the upcoming videos within the series. I'm going to try to get 2 of these out per week. Next week, I'm certainly thinking Blood Angels. We'll also take a look at some other meta picks. If you have ideas, stuff that you want to see, please still comment below. Just give me a reminder. But I appreciate you sticking to the end. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.